Okay, married couples argue, that's no secret. But can you imagine your spouse bringing up your past mistakes every second, every minute, every hour of the day? On today's case, this couple of more than 30 years can barely be in the same state together, let alone the same room. Can they stand each other long enough to get through today's case and save their marriage? Let's hear their case.
Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Starr presiding. Your Honor, this is the case of Maddux versus Maddux.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Maddux, you say your husband has stopped being affectionate toward you, that he really can't do anything for himself, and you're tired of playing the mother, the wife, the chef, the cleaning lady, and the babysitter to a husband who really doesn't give you anything in return.
Yes, Your Honor.
And Mr. Maddux, you say Mrs. Maddux has major anger issues herself and often blows up or shuts completely down instead of really dealing directly with those issues.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, let's get into it. Mrs. Maddux, why are we here today?
I'm here today because I love my husband. I've been with him over 30 years. And this is my last chance to show him how much I love him and how I want to save our marriage.
30 years is a long time, Mr. Maddux. What do you say?
Yes, time either ruins or makes everything better. In our case, time just went on. We went backwards instead of forwards. All because of our indifferences is why we're here today.
It sounds like you're saying that what was once a love affair has just turned cold.
Pretty much, Your Honor.
Talk me through, Mrs. Maddux, about what started your relationship over the last 30-some-odd years.
I met Mr. Maddux when I was 15 years old. He was 19. I seen him coming down the block where I lived at, and I followed him to the store. And he said, "You don't want to be with me because I'm a bad guy." And I said, "I'm tired of being a good girl and I want a bad guy." And my mother said, "He's too old." So I had to wait 5 years. After 5 years, we had our first son, Anthony, which is named after his father.
So you knew that this was going to be your man from the moment you saw him?
He looked so sexy that day. I know I wanted him.
Well, you were 15.
I know.
Okay, so you weren't even supposed to be knowing what was looking sexy, missy. Let me just tell you that. So what went wrong?
He has no romantic bone in his body. Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, my birthday.
I do remember her birthday, though. Now, that one, that's a given. But some things I forget just because that's the way my memory is. And I'm just stuck like that.
Okay, but you can't even turn on the television and not see that it's Mother's
I do
Day.
that, Your Honor. I come on with boxes of stuff. I was a construction worker for a long time. We get perks, we get things from jobs and stuff. My family wanted for nothing. We had everything.
Your Honor, the children had everything they wanted, not me.
She never's denying that you are a good provider, but the provisions are for the family and the romance is missing for her. What do you say to that, Mr. Maddux?
The problem is, I've been a dog on a leash for a long time. When you let Fido loose, Fido gone. And that's what happened to me. She turned the chain loose and I was gone.
Your Honor, that is untrue. This is the 5th time my husband has went and sought another woman.
Okay, wait a minute. You've been together for over 30 years, and you mean to tell me in that time period he has cheated on you 5 times that you know about?
Yes, Your Honor, but he doesn't call it cheating. He says that he was going out there to find financial security for us, but how you find financial security with a woman and then you go be with her and leave me and the kids just high and dry?
Okay, Mr. Maddux, you're gonna have to explain this.
In the beginning, when we first got together, Your Honor, I was a bad guy. I was out in the streets. I was doing all kinds of things. And I was running with gangs and stuff. And when we finally got together, it was all good until the gangs caught up to me and I didn't want my family in jeopardy. So I had to leave the first time. I had to leave and give them space so the people that were following me wouldn't follow them.
Okay, and how does that make you cheat?
I wasn't home. I couldn't be around them. That was in the beginning. After time went on, Your Honor, I was able to come back home to her because I knew the people that were looking for me was already in jail.
But while you were out there in them streets, you were out there in them streets, is what you're saying.
Yes, ma'am. I had to do what I had to do to survive. I was out there in the streets all by myself. There's things I had to do.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor.
That's time number one.
When I first met Mr. Maddux, he just up and left. Didn't tell me where he went. Even his own mother didn't even know where he was at.
Well, Mr. Maddux seems to indicate that he was trying to keep you all safe. And he, quote, had to do what he had to do. That's time number one. What happened to time number two?
The second time, he says, oh, I have a friend of mine who knows this woman, and I'm gonna go get some money from her and bring it back. Then after a while, I'm calling him. He shuts me out. Oh, I'm with this woman, don't call me. She's gonna be upset if you call. Some school teacher, again, leaves us high and dry, no money, no nothing. I'm struggling. I have no job, and he was my only provider. And he just gets up and leaves. And don't wonder what's gonna happen to me and the children, because he didn't care. It was all about what he wanted, not what was best for us.
Was there ever a time that there was romance, that there was love, that there was respect?
Oh, yes, Your Honor.
At one time, but Mr. Maddux is very selfish, and he's very cheap.
Selfish and cheap does not a marriage or relationship make. Have you at least tried to make it work with Mrs. Maddux?
Yes, Your Honor. One of the main issues I have with anybody that I'm around is the tone of their voice. For a long time, I've been used to a lot of noise and people being around me. Just recently, I just got used to peace and quiet. Back in the days when we were together, we had the children with us. It was a lot of noise and confusion.
That's called family. That's called family.
I love my family.
Kids make noise.
Yes, they do, Your Honor.
Wives nag.
Oh,
Husbands
Lord.
get on your nerves.
Ooh,
That's called family.
Ooh, you said a mouthful, Your Honor.
You don't cut and run when your family is involved.
I didn't just cut and run. Her voice volume raises so loud.
Mine
sometimes.
just did too, because you irritating the hell out of me right now.
Not on a regular basis every day, and we don't live together, so I ain't got to hear you talking no disrespect. I don't have to hear you yelling at me every day, but I got to hear this every day while I was home.
You're beating up like somebody in the street.
Beating a child with a strap, that is like slavery. And black people need to get out of doing that, because that is to look back on a history where people would be beaten because they were, quote, not under control. You may not send that through another generation. That is not acceptable, period. And no, you may not defend yourself. Mr. Maddux, don't you think that Mrs. Maddux is entitled to know if you are leaving them, if she's going to be able to provide the rent that month, or
yes,
she's
Your Honor.
going to be able to provide the food that month? Maybe one of the children might need glasses. Maybe somebody gets hurt at school.
Yes, ma'am.
Somebody might want to play a sport, and it requires their daddy.
The problem is when I was home, when we were growing up together as a family, I have a problem with authority figures. And I have a problem with people challenging my authority.
Explain what you mean.
When we're in the house, Your Honor, and it comes around where the children might do something and something breaks or something doesn't go right, and I'm getting ready to chastise them, she'll jump in a heartbeat, which is what a mother's supposed to do, but don't stop me from going to my child and finding out what the story is and getting it straight. I'll pull out a belt in a minute.
If you are not there on a consistent basis and you come in trying to give children directions, they may act out simply because they don't know you.
There's only one child we have between us that I have the most problem with, and thank God he's not here right now, so I don't have to hear his voice. I can't take people yelling at me all the time. I have a serious problem with that. And people touching my stuff. i.e. money. I gave Miss Maddux full opportunity and full respect to go in my wallet and use money when she needs it. Anytime, just don't take nothing from me and don't tell me.
That's dishonest.
So are you telling me that he did not provide for you?
He only cares about what his needs are. His needs always comes first.
Is he generous?
With himself? Now, I don't have a job, and I'm asking him over and over, listen, I need this, I need that. And know what he decides to do? To go to sleep for like 9 hours and just totally ignore me. So I said I need it, the kids need it, I'll go in his wallet.
Which he gave you permission to do, according to him.
Never. He used to lay on top of his wallet so I couldn't get it out the drawer.
Oh, so in other words, he gave you permission, but he didn't give you access.
He never in his life up until this day has ever gave permission to go in his wallet.
So what's the point with him sleeping on his wallet?
Because he's a control freak. Your Honor, I would like to go back for a minute about the discipline.
Yes, ma'am.
The reason why I did not allow him to discipline the kids is because he has no self-control. Number two, you want to come and go and come and go. I'm there with the children. I got everything set up. I got the children under control. I got the schooling, everything. And then he want to come in the house and disrupt them, even though he's their father. I don't care. You are not going to beat the hell out of my kids because you got an attitude. So a lot of times, I would intervene in their children. They're not grown-ups. You're beating them like somebody in the street.
Absolutely not.
These children came from my body.
She has every right to defend her children. She
Yes,
has
she
every
does,
right to
and I
step
have
up
every
in
right
front
to-
of you, and you do not have every right to put your hands on those children. It is called assault and battery, and in every single state in the union, you will go to the penitentiary.
Well,
and you are
ma'am.
hearing that from a former prosecutor in New York State. You do not have authority to hit a child. It is
Ma'am.
not appropriate. Discipline is one thing. Hitting, beating a child with a strap, that is like slavery. And black people need to get out of doing that because that is to look back on a history where people would be beaten because they were, quote, not under control. You may not do that to a child. You may not send that through another generation. That is not acceptable, period, because there ain't nothing else to say.
He doesn't love me. He loves the thought of what I do for him.
Well, then, Mrs. Maddux, let me
But
tell
he
you
loves
something.
all these other women.
Mrs. Maddux, you cannot be a doormat unless you lay down and let people walk all over
I
you.
know, but I wanted my family.
You don't have your family. If you'd like your case to be heard on divorce court, call us toll-free at 1-877-311-2222 or log on to our website at divorcecourt.com. Missed a show? Watch full episodes on our streaming platforms and follow us on social media for exclusive content.
Could you imagine they're trying to get away from him because of discipline? That's not discipline. Beating them is not gonna solve anything. It's just gonna make the relationship worse. So my whole thing is, let's sit down and discuss things. Let me ask you, what's going on? Maybe it could be something at school. Kids get out of hand for a variety of reasons.
Mrs. Maddux, you're never going to need to explain to me why you interceded and did not allow somebody to beat your child. Mr. Maddux, you're going to have to explain why you think that would ever be appropriate, sir.
I'm gonna say it again, I said it before, spare the rod and spoil the child. I was not spared the rod, and I'm not sparing the rod for none of my children.
And clearly you turned into somebody
I
that
turned
would...
out just fine. I
No,
went in the
sir.
military, Your Honor.
No, sir. You know what? You were taught to be that way. You are teaching your children to be that way.
And they don't do it, Your Honor. It was only one, like I tell you. The rest of the children was fine. It was just one.
And the one young man...
Is still alive. He's
Because
still alive.
he hated
I didn't
him.
kill him. He never even got it. Ask her. I never got to whip him once.
Your Honor, because he hates our son.
I don't hate
Because
the boy.
he's
He's just bad.
like him. That's why he hates him. And he tried to beat it out of him. And then he would get mad when he comes to me for comfort. And he says, oh, that's the reason why he's like that, because of you. And it's not because of me. It's because I want to show love. I was beat so much as a kid. I said, I can't do that to my kids. I can't.
Mr. Maddux, you and I are never going to agree on this.
I guess not.
And on the grounds that it may incriminate you, I don't think you should be confessing to it anymore.
I agree, Your Honor.
Next topic. Mr. Maddux, you are here because you say that this marriage is irretrievably broken.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any love left?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I love her to pieces. I just can't be with her. Period.
So what would you expect to come out of this?
Very little and a separation.
And why a separation, not a divorce?
Divorce is the top of the list. Separation is underneath divorce. We can't be around each other. We're fine for a minute until something she remembers, her voice goes up, and then I get aggravated, I shut down. I have boxes and boxes of earplugs. I use those in a heartbeat. I can't take the stress and the aggravation.
Your
I'll put
Honor.
earplugs in, I'll go to bed with them in.
Your Honor, those earplugs he's put in, he never wanted to hear how much pain he caused me and how much that I just needed to talk about things. And why did you do this to me? Like, what did I do to you that make you keep on doing me like this?
Mr. Maddux, do you see the pain that your wife is in? This is a woman that you married, that you stood before God and family and friends, and you said, I will love you in good times and in bad times. in sickness and in health. You made children together. You started a life together. She's in pain, and yet you're not even looking over at her. I cannot imagine a time that my husband would be in a room and I would be crying and in so much pain that he could not look at me and say, baby, I'm sorry. Baby, I'll do better. I mean, is that even a possibility here?
Your Honor, he doesn't even know those words. He don't know I'm sorry. He's never said that to me, not one day.
Mr. Maddux, you cannot make me believe that you're the kind of man that wants to cause this level of pain. You cannot make me believe that inside of you is such meanness that you leave this woman standing here in front of everybody in tears and in pain, and you don't have anything to say to her?
Your Honor, this is not a one-sided story. Her feelings have been hurt. She has hurt my feelings plenty of times. I don't care about feelings no more. I have burnt my feelings out. I love her to death. Just tell you in a heartbeat. There's nothing I won't do for her, no place I won't go, and whatever she needs, I will do. I do take care of business. That's all I know, and that's the way I was raised. I love her to pieces. I love all my kids. If you ask any one of them, they'll tell you. Daddy's been good. He loves us. That's all they know. But there is one thing I want to tell you, though, if you don't mind. We tried to get divorced. It's like God just says, no. We have tried more than once, Your Honor. We have went to court trying to get divorced.
Excuse me, we or me?
She has. I apologize, Your Honor. Up until now, even to get here. I give her credit where credit is due. She's a magnificent woman. I wouldn't trade her for the world if I wanted to stay with her, but I can't stay with her. We can't be together.
You know what? What I have heard today makes me extremely sad. Not sad because you're breaking up. Sad because it didn't come sooner. In all honesty, Mrs. Maddux, Mr. Maddux, you have told me a story of a 30-plus-year relationship where there was love, there was friendship, there was kindness, and it's clearly been gone for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Mr. Maddux, I'm not sure that I have ever seen or heard anyone be so harsh and cruel and void of emotion when it comes to talking about someone that they claim they love to pieces. I'm not sure that anybody would want to admit that in public.
Not everybody can, and I'm just that guy. I can't do what everybody else
You
does.
are just that guy.
Yes,
Mr. Maddux, you
I
really
do what
are just
everybody
that
else
guy.
do. I'm sorry.
That is a very fair statement.
I'm honest.
Your
Mrs.
Honor,
Maddux.
he doesn't love me. He loves the thought of what I do for him.
Well, then, Mrs. Maddux, let me
but
tell
he
you
loves
something.
all these other women.
Mrs. Maddux.
And he don't love me?
Mrs. Maddux, you cannot be a doormat unless you lay down and let people walk all over you.
I know, but I wanted my family.
Well,
I had
guess
children.
what? You don't have your family.
I know, but
This
Judge,
is a
the last-
toxic relationship. It is poisoning your spirit. You have poison in you, and the only way to get out of it is to be vaccinated. And you know how to get vaccinated? Get a divorce.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. You never love me, and you know you don't.
I do love you.
No,
baby.
you don't. You love every other woman but me. You want to make every other excuse, and you know what? I'm done.
Well, we had a good run, honey.
It's done.
All right.
I have never seen anyone be that mean to a person he claimed to love.
Yeah, just because you've been married 30 years, that's not an accolade. An accolade is when you've been married 30 years, and it's been quality 30 years.
100%. There's never going to be a time that my husband is going to look at me with that level of disdain and disrespect and think that that's going to work.
If I did only a quarter of that, I'd be out the door.
I know your wife. You right about that?